What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Optimistic Podcast. Today, I just wanted to talk about something that honestly didn't click to me until I looked back over everything we learned throughout the semester, or until I realized it was for my final grade. But seriously, at first, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, Christianity, and the Crusades all felt like completely different topics that we were just learning. But the more I dug into history, the more I actually realized that they're all connected, truthfully. My main argument for this podcast is that all four of these time periods shaped Western civilization by changing the way people thought about power, government, and religion. Each one built off the one before it, and without one, the next probably wouldn't even be the same or happen the same way. So let's get started on ancient Greece. I think Greece is where everything really begins because that's where people started asking some really big questions, honestly. Instead of accepting the way things have always been, philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, I don't remember how to say the name, but they wanted to know what made government fair and what justice actually meant. So they wanted to know what made someone a good leader. So the Athens also introduced democracy, which was a huge deal. Now, it definitely wasn't perfect because women, enslaved people, and foreigners couldn't vote. But the idea that regular citizens could actually participate in the government was something completely new. It changed the way people thought about political power. And the wrong and Oh, sorry. And then I'm talking a little too fast. And then Rome comes along and it kind of takes those Greek ideas to the next level, honestly. And instead of focusing on small city states, Rome built one of the biggest empires the world has ever seen. And that's what really stands out to me about Rome is how organized it was. They created written laws, built roads, connected the empire, developed systems that kept all kinds of people, millions of people under one government. And even today, we still see influence in our legal system from Rome, ideas like the written laws and equal treatment under the law and innocent until proven guilty, and all those things have roots from Roman traditions. But here's the thing, even with all that power, Rome still fell. The empire started dealing with political corruption and economic struggles and attacks from outside groups, honestly. So eventually the Western Roman Empire collapsed. And then suddenly, there wasn't just one strong government keeping everything together anymore. But there was something, Christianity. This became really important, honestly, because it started during the Roman Empire, but it really wasn't accepted at first. Early Christians were persecuted, because they refused to worship the Roman gods or the empire, honestly. But even though they faced persecution, Christianity kept growing because the message it gave people hope. It taught forgiveness, equality before God, and it promised eternal life, and that really appealed to everybody, honestly. Everything changed when Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity with the Edict of Milan. Later, Christianity was made legal under the Roman Empire. And what's interesting is even after Romans fell, Christianity didn't. The church became one of the strongest institutions in Europe. It helped preserve education, copied important books, cared for communities, and gave people stability during uncertain times. And in a lot of ways, it carried on parts of Roman society after the empire itself was gone. And that leads us to the Crusades. The Crusades began in 1095 when Pope Urban II called on Christians to reclaim Judaism. I don't know how to say that. But on the surface, it sounded like it was only about religion, but there's actually a lot of different motivations. Some people joined because of their faith, others joined because of land, they wanted wealth, they wanted adventure, political power, all the things. The Crusades caused a tremendous amount of violence and didn't permanently achieve their goals of controlling the Holy Land, but they also had some unexpected effects. Trade between Europe and the Middle East increased, and Europe was introduced to new ideas, medical knowledge, technologies, classical texts, that Muslim scholars had preserved. So even though the Crusades were mostly remembered as religious wars, they also helped spread knowledge that would later contribute to the Renaissance. But when I step back and I take a look at like all four of these topics together, I really notice that each one influenced the next. Ancient Greece introduced democracy and philosophy. Rome expanded those ideas through law and government while creating a powerful empire. Christianity that spread throughout that empire and eventually became one of Europe's strongest institutions after Rome collapsed. Then the Crusades really just show how powerful religion had become, not only as like a source of faith, but as a force that influenced politics, warfare, and like cultural exchange. That's why I think these topics fit so well together instead of being separate chapters in a history book. There's really one long story about how ideas evolved over time. Government change, religion spreads, empires rise and fall, but each generation builds on what came before, honestly. So if I had to sum up everything, I say this. Greece taught people how to think about government. Rome showed how to organize and rule an empire. Christianity reshaped people's beliefs and values, and the Crusades demonstrated like positive and negative consequences of combining religion with political power. So, looking at history this way, it honestly feels like a lot less memorizing dates and a lot more like connecting the pieces of a puzzle. Once you see those connections, it's easy to understand why these civilizations still matter today. So I just wanted to thank y'all for listening to my podcast, even though I was really mumbling. I mean, I'm not mumbling. My words were jumbling because I was talking too fast, but that's because I was a little bit nervous. So I hope I get an A. Thanks.